I came home from my honeymoon with sand still stuck in the seams of my suitcase and a new wedding ring that felt heavier than it looked. We pulled up to my street right after noon. The sky was bright, the kind of blue that's supposed to make you believe life is safe. I remember thinking I couldn't wait to drop my bags, shower, and sleep in my own bed for the first time in a week. Then I saw the sign. Sold. It was planted in the middle of my yard like a flag. A white locksmith van was parked half on my driveway, half on my lawn. Two strangers stood by my front door, and one of them was holding a cardboard box filled with something small and metallic. My doorknobs. My stomach tightened, but my face stayed still. Because I knew that feeling. The one that says, this isn't a misunderstanding. This is someone treating your life like a joke. My husband, Miles, whispered, Claire, what is this? I didn't answer him. I set my suitcase down carefully on the sidewalk and walked up my own path, like I wasn't about to be erased. The locksmith glanced at me. Ma'am, he said, polite. We're in the middle of a lock change. New owners are taking possession today. New owners. The couple standing near my porch straightened like they'd been waiting for a confrontation. The woman clutched a folder to her chest. The man held his phone up, already recording like the internet was going to be their witness. I'm the owner, I said calmly. The woman blinked. No, she said, nervous laughing. We closed. We have keys. The man added, We're not leaving. We paid for this. Behind them, my front door opened. My mother stepped out like she'd been standing there listening, savoring the moment. She wore sunglasses even though she was in the shade, and she smiled as if she'd won a raffle. Right behind her was my sister Brianna in a cropped jacket and too bright lipstick, phone held up at chest level, filming. Her eyes flicked to my ring and then away fast like it annoyed her that I looked happy. My mother's smile widened. Well, she said loudly, for the yard and the street and the couple to hear. Look who's home. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't rush past the strangers. I didn't give anyone the chaos they wanted. What is happening? I asked. My mother stepped down onto the porch, slow and theatrical. We sold your house while you were gone, she said, like she was announcing a casserole recipe. Family needed the money. My sister snorted and panned her phone over my face. You're homeless now, she said, smirking. How's that honeymoon feel? I could feel eyes behind curtains. A neighbor's blinds twitched. Someone across the street slowed their car to stare. Miles moved closer to me, protective without being aggressive. This is her property, he said, voice tight. You can't just... My mother cut him off with a laugh. Oh, sweetie, she said, dripping pity. Your little wife doesn't get everything she wants just because she put on a dress. My hands went cold. Not from fear, from the clarity of knowing she'd planned this down to the audience. The couple on my porch shifted, uncomfortable now. The woman looked between us like she was realizing she'd walked into something ugly. The man kept recording anyway, because some people only care about being right on camera. I turned my eyes to my mother. Who signed the deed? I asked. Brianna laughed. You really think you can stop it? It's already done. I asked a question, I said, flat. My mother's smile tightened. Paperwork, she said. Adults handled it. You were busy on vacation. I nodded once as if that was an answer. Then I asked the only question that matters when someone claims they sold your property. What title company handled the sale? The air shifted. Just slightly. My mother's smile slipped at the corner, a tiny crack she couldn't hide fast enough. Brianna's filming hand dipped for half a second like her wrist suddenly got heavy. That's not your business, my mother snapped, recovering. It's literally my business, I said, still calm. Name the title company. Brianna jumped in too quickly. Harborline, she said. Then she added, louder, A harbor line title, okay? Happy? My mother's eyes flashed at her like, Aunt, shut up. But it was too late. The detail was out. The locksmith cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said to the couple, if there's a dispute, I can't proceed. I need confirmation from escrow. The man bristled. We have confirmation, he said, shoving the folder forward. We have a settlement statement. I didn't touch it. I didn't argue with them. Innocent buyers become collateral in family games, and I refused to make them my enemy before I knew what they'd been told. Instead, I looked at the locksmith. Stop, I said, calm and clear. Do not change that lock. He hesitated. Then he nodded once like he'd heard something in my voice that sounded like liability. My mother stepped forward, anger flashing. You don't get to order people around, she hissed. I met her eyes. I'm not ordering, I said. I'm documenting. I picked up my suitcase, turned away from my porch, and walked back down my path. Miles followed without a word. I didn't call the police from my driveway. My mother loves scenes, and she's good at turning a scene into a story where she's the victim and I'm the monster. So I drove to the one place her story couldn't survive. The county recorder. Inside the fluorescent lobby, I took a number and waited, watching a wall clock tick like it was counting down to a verdict. Miles sat beside me, silent and tense. When my number was called, I stepped to the counter and slid my ID across. The clerk's name tag read, Marisol. She had tired eyes and the kind of calm that comes from seeing too many families try to steal from each other. I need to pull the deed and current status for my property, I said. Someone claims it was sold while I was out of town. Marisol nodded once and typed in my address. Her fingers moved fast. Then she paused. Not a normal pause. A pause like she'd just hit something sharp. She clicked once. Her expression tightened. She clicked again and leaned closer to her screen. What is it? I asked. Marisol didn't answer right away. She turned her monitor slightly toward me so I could see the property record. My house, my parcel number, my legal description, and a bold status note in a red field. Transfer restricted. Below it, a smaller line. Notice of trust on file. I felt my mouth want to smile before my face allowed it. Marisol glanced up at me, careful. Ma'am, she said quietly, this property is not transferable the way your family thinks it is. I kept my voice calm. Tell me why. She tapped the screen with her pen and said, because the house they sold was never in your personal name at all. It's held under a restricted trust filing that requires your authorization. Marisol didn't treat it like a fun twist. She treated it like a safety issue. She clicked into another tab and the screen filled with gray boxes, recording dates, document types, cross-references. Then she angled the monitor toward me again. At some point, she said quietly, someone recorded the memorandum of trust against this parcel. That's why the system flags it. It means transfers can't be processed the normal way. Miles leaned in beside me. So they can't sell it, he said, almost disbelieving. Marisol's expression stayed neutral. They can try, she said. But the record won't support it unless the requirements are met. I kept my hands flat on the counter. Show me the requirements, I said. She clicked once. A scanned document opened. Clean, formal, dated years ago. The header read, Hart Residence Trust. My chest tightened. Not from fear this time, but from recognition. I hadn't thought about that trust in years. It was something my dad had put in place after my parents' marriage imploded. Something he said would keep the house from turning into a weapon. Marisol scrolled until she reached a bold section. Authority to convey. Trustee signature required. Under it was a name. Trustee, Claire Hart. I didn't react outwardly, but inside, something cold and steady clicked into place. My mother hadn't sold my house. She'd tried to sell something she didn't have the legal ability to move. Miles exhaled slowly. You're the trustee, he whispered. Yes, I said, voice level. I am. Marisol looked up at me carefully. Have you signed anything? She asked. No, I said. I was on my honeymoon. She nodded once, like that confirmed what she already suspected. Then she clicked into the activity history. My stomach tightened again. Because there, in a log of recent actions, was a line item from the day before. Attempted deed submission. Rejected submitted via e-recording, submitting entity, harbor line title. So Brianna hadn't just said a random name on the porch. They'd actually opened a file. They'd actually pushed paper. And the county had stopped it before it could become real. Marisol glanced at me. This is why the system placed the transfer restriction, she said. An attempt was made, and it didn't match the trust authority. What didn't match? I asked. Marisol clicked again. A small note field expanded. Trustee signature missing, she read. Notary commission out of state. Identity verification inconsistent. Inconsistent. That was a polite word for forged. Miles's jaw tightened. So the buyers? They got scammed. Possibly, Marisol said. Or they're being used to pressure you into surrender. My mother loved pressure. She loved crowds. She loved witnesses. She loved anyone who could be turned into a moral shield. I kept my tone calm. I need certified copies of everything, I said. The trust memorandum, the restriction notice, and the attempted submission log. Marisol nodded. I can give you certified copies of what's recorded and a certified status printout, she said. The submission packet itself is handled through our fraud desk. Then root it, I replied. She stood and walked to a back office. I watched her go, hands still on the counter, breathing steady. Miles leaned close. Claire, he murmured. What if they change the locks anyway? I'm not letting them, I said, still quiet. But I'm also not going back there without paper. Because if I walked into that yard with only anger, my mother would turn it into a story. If I walked in with certified records and a restriction notice, she'd have to explain herself to people who don't care about her story. Marisol returned with a stamped packet and slid it to me through the slot under the plexiglass divider. Here, she said. This is the current status. Transfer restricted. This is the memorandum of trust. This is the chain entry showing harbor line title attempted submission. I flipped through slowly, making sure I wasn't missing anything. Then Marisol tapped one page with her pen. This line matters, she said. I followed her pen. Any conveyance requires the trustee's signature and in-person identity verification. I looked up. So even if they forged my signature, it still triggers verification, she said. Which is why it was rejected. A small part of me wanted to laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly my father. He'd built a lock that didn't rely on a person being honest. He'd built it to survive my mother. I slipped the papers back into the folder and asked the next question. Who do I contact to put a fraud affidavit on file? I asked. Marisol's eyes sharpened slightly. You should, she said. And you should also notify the title company in writing immediately that the trustee did not authorize a sale. Harborline, I said. She nodded. If they are legitimate, they will want to stop everything and notify the buyer. If they're complicit... She didn't finish that sentence because she didn't need to. I took one slow breath. Where is Harborline title located? I asked. Marisol pulled up a directory link and wrote the address on a sticky note. 10 minutes from here, she said. Downtown. Good, I replied. As I turned away from the counter, Miles touched my elbow. Are we going back to the house first? He asked. Not yet, I said. First, we cut the oxygen to their lie. In the parking lot, my phone buzzed again. A video message from Brianna. I didn't open it. I didn't need to see my own porch through her camera. Instead, And I opened my notes app and wrote 3 things like a checklist. Certified county restriction printout trust showing trustee name Harborline title attempt log. Then I called the locksmith number from the van's side panel that I'd photographed earlier. It rang twice before a dispatcher answered. "Coastal Lock and Key," a man said. "Hi," I said calmly. "This is Claire Hart. Your tech is at my address for a lock change. That property is under a county transfer restriction with suspected fraud. I am the legal owner and trustee. Tell your tech to stop work and leave." There was a pause. Typing. "Do you have a case number?" he asked. "I have a certified status printout from the county recorder and a fraud routing," I said. "If your tech proceeds, he's participating in an unlawful lockout." The dispatcher exhaled slowly. "Hold," he said, and I heard him calling out to someone in the background. "We're pulling him." Good. Then I called my neighbor, Mrs. Donnelly, the one person on that street who watched everything without being messy about it. She answered on the first ring. "Claire?" "Don't let anyone into my house," I said. "Not my mother. Not my sister. Not any buyers. If there's a locksmith, tell them the county has it restricted and call police if they touch the door." Her voice went sharp. "They're there right now," she said. "Your mother's standing like a queen. Your sister's filming. I already told them you're not home, and they laughed." "I'm handling it," I said. I ended the call and looked at Miles. "We're going to Harborline," I said, "and we're going to make them freeze everything in writing." At Harborline title, the lobby was too clean. Too coastal-themed. A bowl of mints on the reception desk. A framed photo of a lighthouse that screamed trustworthiness. I walked up to the receptionist and said, "I need to speak to the escrow officer on the Hart residence file, immediately." The receptionist smiled automatically. "And your name?" "Claire Hart," I said. "Trustee and owner. The county recorder has the property marked transfer restricted due to an unauthorized attempted submission under your company name." Her smile blinked off like a light. "One moment," she said, and her fingers moved fast on the keyboard. She glanced up again, eyes suddenly cautious. "Ma'am, you're not listed as the seller contact." "I know," I said evenly. "That's the problem." The receptionist swallowed. "I'll get someone." A man in a fitted suit appeared from a back hallway and introduced himself as Grant Whitaker, an escrow officer. He didn't invite me to sit in the lobby. He walked me into a conference room and closed the door like he was trying to keep the office from hearing the word fraud. "Ms. Hart," he said, controlled and professional. "We have an active file, yes. It was opened by your—" He stopped himself and chose a safer phrase. "It was opened by a party claiming authority." I placed my folder on the table and slid the certified county printout toward him. Grant read the header, read the stamp, then paused. His eyes moved to the line that listed the trustee. Then he looked up at me. "Your mother is here," he said quietly. My stomach didn't drop. It hardened. "Of course she is," I said. Grant swallowed. "She arrived earlier with another woman," he added. "They said you were unavailable and that a family emergency required an expedited closing." "Brianna." I didn't raise my voice. "Bring up your submission log," I said. "And show me who signed your seller packet." Grant hesitated for half a second, then opened his laptop and turned it toward me. He clicked into the file timeline. He scrolled once. Then he went still. And when he spoke, his voice had changed. Less customer service, more liability. "Ms. Hart," he said quietly. "The seller packet includes a power of attorney." I stared at the screen and kept my face calm. "Whose name is on it?" I asked. Grant's eyes flicked up briefly, then back down to the document title. He read it aloud. "Attorney in fact, Marjorie Hart. My mother." And at that exact moment, I heard heels in the hallway outside the conference room. Fast, confident, like someone who believed she was walking toward a victory speech. The conference room door opened like it belonged to her. My mother stepped in first, Marjorie Hart, chin lifted, sunglasses still on, smiling like she'd come to collect something she'd already claimed. Behind her, Brianna slipped in with her phone raised, filming again, pretending it was for her protection while aiming it straight at my face. "Claire," my mother said, sugary and loud. "There you are." "Grant, sweetheart, we were wondering how long you were going to keep us waiting." Grant's posture stiffened. "Ma'am," he said carefully, "this is an internal meeting." My mother ignored him and looked at me. "You can stop this little tantrum," she said. "You're married now. You have a husband. You'll be fine." Miles shifted beside me, jaw tight. Brianna angled the camera toward him. "Say hi," she murmured. "You're part of this now." I didn't flinch. I didn't snap at the phone. I didn't give her a clip she could edit into me looking crazy. Instead, I looked at Grant and spoke like this room was a bank, not a family dinner. "Grant," I said calmly, "I want the full audit trail on this file. Who opened it? Who uploaded the POA? Who completed the e-sign? What identity documents were used? And what notary platform handled the session?" My mother laughed. "Listen to her," she said to Grant, as if I was a child reading a script. "She thinks she's a lawyer because she can say audit trail." Grant didn't laugh. He stared at the laptop screen, then at my mother, then back at me, and I could see the calculation behind his eyes. This wasn't a family argument anymore. This was liability. "Ms. Hart," he said to my mother, "the property has a trust restriction. The county recorder is showing transfer restricted. That means we cannot proceed without trustee authority." My mother's smile twitched. "My husband set that up," she snapped. "And he's dead. So it's still binding," Grant said, voice controlled. "And according to the recorded memorandum, the trustee is Claire." Brianna's filming hand dipped for half a second, then corrected. My mother's sunglasses hid her eyes, but I saw her jaw tighten. "Grant," she said, lowering her voice into something sharper. "We already have a buyer. They're waiting. Don't embarrass me." I stayed quiet, watching her try to bully a title officer the way she bullied waiters and neighbors and anyone who didn't know their rights. Grant didn't move. "I can't ignore a transfer restriction," he said. "If we do, we risk sanctions and a fraud report." My mother's voice rose. "Fraud?" she scoffed. "Are you calling me a criminal?" I didn't speak. I let her walk into her own words. Grant glanced at me. "Ms. Hart," he said quietly, "the file includes a limited power of attorney naming your mother as attorney-in-fact. That's what they used to justify signing on your behalf." I nodded once. "Open it," I said. Brianna's eyes flashed. "You can't just demand things," she snapped. "Actually," I said, still calm, "I can. Because my name is on the property, and your company name is on the attempted submission that the county rejected." Grant clicked into the document and pulled it up on the screen. The POA looked clean at first glance. Formal header. My name typed neatly. Yes, language about authority to convey real property. A notary block at the bottom. My mother leaned forward like she wanted to watch me break. "You see," she said. "Legal, adult, done." I didn't react. I scanned the details the way you scan a receipt when you already know the total is wrong. "Scroll," I said to Grant. He scrolled down to the notary section. Remote online notarization. Out-of-state commission. And a line that made my throat tighten. Principal appeared via audio-video communication. Identity verified. My mother's smile returned, smug. I kept my voice neutral. "Grant," I said, "your notary platform keeps the recording of that session." Grant hesitated. "The platform does," he said. "We can request it," I said. Brianna scoffed. "That's insane," she snapped. "She's wasting your time." Grant didn't look at her. and he clicked into the verification tab and pulled up the ID attachment used for the session. A driver's license image opened. Mine. Or someone's attempt at mine. The edges looked slightly cropped. The glare line didn't sit right. The photo looked sharpened in a way real IDs don't. Grant stared at it for a long second. "This is what was uploaded," he said quietly. Miles leaned closer. "That doesn't look right," he murmured. I kept my face still. "Because it's not right," I said softly. Then to Grant, "Open the platform's verification log, the one that shows how identity was verified." Grant clicked again. A log appeared with timestamps and check marks. He scrolled once. Then he went still. The kind of stillness that doesn't happen because something is confusing. It happens because something is damning. "What?" I asked, and Grant swallowed and looked up at me. "The identity verification shows a mismatch," he said. "The platform flagged it as manual review requested, but someone overrode it." My mother's voice snapped. "Overrode what?" Grant didn't answer her. He clicked into the override note. The note field showed a name. Override approved by Brianna Hart. Brianna's phone lowered like it suddenly weighed too much to hold. "What is that?" she demanded, too loud, too fast. "That's not..." Grant's voice stayed cautious. "This file shows the user account that approved the manual review," he said. "It's listed under Brianna Hart." My mother turned her head slowly toward my sister. "Brianna," she hissed, like she could scold the evidence away. Brianna's face flushed. "It's just a click," she snapped. "It doesn't mean anything." "It means," I said quietly, "you were inside their system." My mother pivoted instantly, trying to take control back. "She's helping the family," she said, glaring at Grant like he was supposed to applaud. "You people make everything so complicated." Grant didn't budge. He looked at me and said, "Ms. Hart, at this point, I need to bring in our compliance manager." "Please," I said. My mother scoffed. "Oh, for God's sake." Grant stood, opened the door, and spoke to someone in the hallway. A minute later, a woman stepped in, mid-40s, hair in a tight bun, eyes sharp enough to cut through lies on contact. Her name tag read, Denise Carver, Compliance. Denise didn't smile at anyone. She looked at the laptop, the documents on the screen, then at me. "You're the trustee?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "And you did not authorize this sale," she said. "No," I replied, and Denise turned her eyes to my mother. "Ma'am," she said, "I need you to stop speaking over this process. This file is now under fraud review." My mother's voice went brittle. "Fraud review? You can't..." Denise held up a hand. "I can," she said, calm and cold. "And I am." She looked at Grant. "Freeze the file," she said. "No further actions, no disbursement, no keys, no possession." Grant clicked. The status changed on the screen. Hold, compliance, fraud. Review my mother's sunglasses finally came off. Her eyes were furious and bright. "You're doing this because she's whining," she snapped at Denise. "My daughter is dramatic. She's always been dramatic." Denise didn't even glance at me. She stared at my mother like my mother was a form she needed to complete. "This property has a recorded trust restriction," Denise said. "Yeah, the county flagged an attempted submission. Your account shows an override on identity verification. If money has moved, we are obligated to report." My mother's face tightened. "Money moved?" she echoed, too sharp. Denise's eyes flicked to the file timeline. "There is a buyer," she said, "and I see an earnest money entry." The word earnest made my stomach clench for a different reason. Not because it threatened me, because it meant innocent people were involved. Miles leaned toward me. "Claire," he whispered. I kept my voice level. "Where is the earnest money sitting?" I asked Denise. Denise's gaze sharpened. She clicked into a ledger screen and scanned it. Then she stopped. Not like she was thinking, like she'd just stepped on a nail. "Grant," she said quietly, "pull up the wire instructions that were provided." Grant clicked and opened a document and scrolled. Denise leaned in. Her mouth tightened. Then she turned the laptop toward me and pointed to one line. "Beneficiary, Marjorie Hart." My mother didn't breathe for a second. Brianna's phone dropped to her side completely, forgotten. Denise's voice went flat. "The buyer's funds were not directed to our escrow trust account," she said. "They were directed to an individual. To my mother." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just let the meaning settle. They didn't sell my house. They tried to sell my house. And while they were doing it, they tried to funnel the buyer's money straight into my mother's pocket. Denise looked up at my mother, eyes cold. "Ma'am," she said, "do you understand how serious that is?" My mother opened her mouth. Nothing came out clean. Then, from outside the conference room, I heard voices in the lobby, excited, nervous, and a man's voice I didn't recognize saying, "We're here for the walkthrough. We were told we'd get keys today." Denise's eyes met mine for one beat. Then she said quietly, "The buyers are here." The voices in the lobby got closer, bright and nervous, the sound of people walking toward a dream they'd paid for. Denise didn't rush to hide anything. She didn't lower her voice. She did the opposite. She opened the conference room door and stepped out, posture straight, tone professional. "Hi," she said, calm. "Are you here regarding the Hart property?" A couple appeared at the end of the hallway. The woman held a folder so tight her knuckles looked pale. The man had his phone in his hand, screen glowing with a map and a calendar reminder. "Yes," the man said. "We're here for our walkthrough. We were told we'd get keys today." My mother's head snapped toward them instantly, like she'd found her audience again. She stepped out of the conference room doorway and smiled wide. "There you are," she said, too sweet. "I'm so sorry for the delay. My daughter is being difficult." Brianna moved beside her, phone already up again, filming the buyers now like she was the one documenting fraud instead of committing it. Denise lifted a hand, not rude. Final. "Ma'am," she said to my mother, "you need to stop speaking for this file." My mother's smile froze. "Excuse me?" Denise kept her eyes steady. "We are placing this transaction under compliance fraud review," she said. "There will be no keys issued today. There will be no possession granted today." The woman buyer blinked. "What do you mean fraud review?" My mother tried to push past Denise, voice sharpening. "It's a family dispute," she said quickly. "She's the trustee and she's being emotional. The sale is fine." I didn't move. I didn't argue. I stepped forward just enough to be seen, not enough to create a scene, and said one sentence to the buyers in a calm, even voice. "I did not authorize any sale of my home, and the county recorder has already rejected an attempted transfer." The air changed. The buyers' faces shifted from excited to confused to wary in a single beat. The man's voice rose. "We wired money," he said. "We signed. We have documents." Denise nodded once. "I'm aware," she said. "That's why this is serious." My mother scoffed loudly. "They wired money because it's real," she snapped. "She's just trying to punish us." Denise turned her head slightly, eyes colder now. "No," she said. "They wired money because someone gave them instructions that did not route through our escrow trust account." The woman's hand flew to her chest. "What?" Denise looked at them. "I need both of you in this room," she said. "And I need you to understand something clearly. If you wired funds directly to an individual or to an account outside escrow, you may have been defrauded." My mother's voice went sharp. "You can't say that." Denise didn't look at her. "I can," she said, and led the buyers into the conference room. They sat. My mother and Brianna hovered near the doorway, like they still believed proximity equaled authority. Denise turned the laptop toward the buyers and pointed to the wire instructions Grant had pulled up. The line I'd already seen. Beneficiary, Marjorie Hart. The man stared at it. That's her, he said, voice cracking with disbelief as he looked at my mother. My mother's chin lifted. Yes, she said, as if it was normal. It's family. The money needed to go somewhere safe. The woman buyer's eyes widened. Safe? She whispered. We were told it was escrow. The man scrolled through his own folder with shaking hands and pulled out a confirmation page. He slapped it on the table. We wired it yesterday, he said, voice tight. We wired it exactly how we were instructed. Denise didn't flinch. She examined it like a professional. Do you have the exact time and reference number? She asked. The man nodded and read it off, hands trembling. Denise looked at Grant. Call the bank's wire department, she said. Right now, put it on speaker. Grant hesitated for half a second, then obeyed. He dialed. A recorded voice answered. Then a human picked up. Denise spoke calmly, using the tone that makes people listen. This is Denise Carver, compliance, she said. We have a transaction under fraud review. We need to initiate an urgent wire recall request for a buyer who was instructed to wire funds outside escrow to an individual. My mother's face tightened. You're humiliating me, she hissed. Denise didn't look away from the phone. You should be more concerned about what you signed, she replied. The bank representative asked for details. Denise provided them. The man buyer repeated the reference number. Then the bank rep said a sentence that made the room go dead quiet. There is already a fraud flag on that beneficiary account, she said. My mother's lips parted. What? The bank rep continued, voice careful. We cannot discuss account specifics, but the system indicates a pending review on the receiving side. The recall request will be escalated. Brianna's phone lowered again. Her eyes flicked to my mother with something that looked like panic. My mother snapped, This is insane. But her voice had lost its confidence. Denise ended the call and looked at the buyers. You need to file a wire fraud report with your bank immediately, she said. Today, in person if possible. Do not wait. The woman buyer's eyes were glossy. Are we going to lose it? Denise didn't promise what she couldn't control. I don't know, she said honestly. But the faster you report, the better your odds. The man buyer turned toward my mother, voice shaking with fury now. You took our money, he said. You used us. My mother lifted her hands like she was wounded. I didn't take anything, she snapped. You were buying a house. Don't be dramatic. Stop, I said quietly. My mother's eyes cut to me like knives. Don't you dare. I didn't raise my voice. I simply looked at the buyers. I'm sorry you got pulled into this, I said calm. But you need to understand the house was held under a restricted trust. No legitimate title company can transfer it without my signature and in-person verification. The man buyer swallowed hard. So, the sale isn't real. No, I said. It's not. Denise tapped the laptop. We will be issuing written notice that this file is frozen under compliance fraud review, she said. We will be reporting this attempt through the proper channels, and we will preserve all digital logs, audit trails, and platform records associated with this file. My mother's voice turned shrill. You can't destroy us over a misunderstanding. Denise finally looked directly at her. This isn't a misunderstanding, she said. It's an attempted conveyance using a contested power of attorney, an overridden identity verification mismatch, and wire instructions routed outside escrow. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out clean. Brianna stepped forward suddenly, trying to reclaim control by force. This is private, she snapped. and reached for the laptop like she could close it and end reality. Denise moved faster than Brianna expected. "Do not touch that," Denise said sharply. Brianna's fingers hovered midair and then withdrew like she'd touched a hot surface. Grant stood as well, blocking the laptop with his body. The room had shifted. My mother was no longer the authority figure, she was a risk. Denise looked at me. "Ms. Hart," she said, "you need to secure your property immediately. If there are strangers at your home changing locks, that becomes a separate matter." "They're there," I said. "Right now." Denise nodded once. "Then I'm calling building security to escort your mother and sister off the premises," she said. "And I'm calling local law enforcement to report suspected transaction fraud and attempted unlawful possession." My mother's head snapped up. "You're calling the police?" she said, voice climbing. Denise didn't blink. "Yes," she said. "Yes. Because if you are directing buyer funds to yourself and attempting to take possession of a property without lawful authority, we have an obligation to report." My mother's face hardened. "This is my family," she hissed. "I can handle my family." Denise's voice was flat. "You already did," she said, and stepped out to make the call. The buyers sat frozen, the woman wiping at her cheek with the side of her hand. The man stared at his wire confirmation like it could change if he looked hard enough. Brianna tried to resurrect her smirk, but it wouldn't hold. "You think you're so smart," she muttered at me. "You think paperwork makes you untouchable." "It doesn't make me untouchable," I said quietly. "It makes you accountable." My mother leaned in close, voice low and poisonous. "If you do this," she whispered, "you'll regret it." I didn't move. "You already sold consequences with my name on them," I replied. "I'm just returning them to sender." Denise came back in with a security officer behind her. Tall, calm, hands clasped. "Ma'am," the guard said to my mother, "you need to leave the building." My mother flared. "This is outrageous." The guard didn't argue. He simply waited, and that patience was its own kind of power. Denise looked at Brianna. "And you," she said. "Your user account actions are being preserved. Do not delete anything. Do not attempt to access this file again." And Brianna's eyes widened. "You can't prove anything." Denise's gaze stayed cold. "We don't prove," she said. "We produce logs." My mother grabbed Brianna's elbow hard and started pulling her toward the door. "Come on," she hissed. "We're not staying for this circus." As they walked out, my mother turned her head and threw one last line over her shoulder like she could still write the ending. "You'll have nowhere to live," she snapped, "because those locks will be changed before you get there." Miles stepped closer to me, voice low. "Claire?" I didn't answer. I was already moving, because the next part wasn't about proving fraud in a conference room. It was about stopping a physical takeover at my front door. We drove back fast, my phone mounted on the dash. I called the non-emergency line for my town, kept my voice steady, and said, "I need an officer dispatched to my address for an attempted unlawful lockout. I am the legal owner and trustee. There is an active title fraud report, and the county recorder has the property transfer restricted." The dispatcher asked for my name. I gave it. Then she asked, "Are the parties on scene?" "Yes," I said. My mother, my sister, a locksmith, and people claiming to be buyers. A pause. Keyboard clicks. Then, "Officers are en route." When we turned onto my street, I saw my yard first. The sold sign still planted there like a taunt. Then my porch. The locksmith van. The couple with the folder. And my mother standing in the doorway like she owned the air. But this time, there were 2 patrol cars pulled up behind them, lights off, officers stepping out with that calm, controlled posture that says, "We're not here for your story." One officer looked up as I got out of the car, and before I even reached the walkway, he raised a hand and said, "Ma'am, Are you Claire Hart? Yes, I said. He nodded once, then held up a single sheet of paper someone had handed him. Then you need to see what they gave us, he said. Because it's a power of attorney that claims you signed it yesterday, and the notary stamp on it is from a state you haven't been in. I didn't rush. That's the instinct when someone is touching your door. Run, grab, shout. But that's what my mother wanted. A scene she could narrate as my daughter is unstable. So I walked up the path at a steady pace, my folder held against my ribs like a shield. Miles stayed half a step behind me, silent, watching everything. The senior officer, Officer Hayes, kept the paper raised as I approached. They provided this, he said, measured. Power of attorney. Hank claims you signed it yesterday. I stopped at the bottom step and said calmly, I was on my honeymoon yesterday. Hayes nodded once. That's what you told dispatch. They claim otherwise. He angled the page toward me. It was exactly what Denise had warned me about. A document designed to look official enough to bully a locksmith and confuse a patrol officer who wasn't living inside this story. My name typed neatly. My mother listed as attorney in fact, an out-of-state notary stamp, and a date that made my stomach tighten. Yesterday. Officer, I said, voice even. The county recorder has the property marked transfer restricted due to a recorded trust memorandum. I am the trustee. No conveyance is valid without my signature and in-person verification. I have certified proof in my folder. Hayes looked at me, then at the porch, then back. Okay, he said. Show me. I handed him the certified county status printout first, transfer restricted, then the memorandum of trust showing trustee authority, then the certified entry showing Harborline's attempted submission was rejected. He read them slowly. You could see his posture shift from neighbor dispute to potential fraud. Behind him, my mother's voice shot out, loud and sweet, aimed at the street like a microphone. She's lying, she called. She's always lying, she's emotional. She doesn't understand legal documents. The younger officer, Officer Kim, turned his head toward her, eyes tightening. Ma'am, he said, stop interrupting. My mother laughed like it was a joke. I'm just trying to help, she said. Officer Hayes didn't look at her. He kept reading the trust memo, and then traced a finger down to the line Marisol had pointed out. Trustee signature required. He looked up at me. You're the trustee, he said. Yes, I replied. And you didn't sign any sale documents, he said. No, I said again. Hayes nodded once and turned toward the locksmith. Sir, he asked, who hired you? The locksmith, middle-aged, tired, already regretting his morning, held up his work order. Horizon Home Transitions, he said. They told me new owners took possession today. Officer Kim glanced at the work order and asked, Did you verify ownership? The locksmith shook his head. I was given a POA, he said, nodding toward my mother. And the buyer showed me a settlement statement. The buyer, the man who'd been recording, stepped forward. We have documents, he insisted. We paid. We wired. Hayes held up his hand. Everybody breathe, he said, calm. No one is entering this home right now. My mother's face tightened. They need to get inside, she snapped. They own it. They do not, Hayes replied, and his tone had sharpened. He tapped my certified status printout with his pen. County record is restricted. Attempted transfer was rejected. She's trustee. That means this property is not legally conveyed. The woman buyer's face went pale. But we were told... I know, I said quietly, looking at her. I'm sorry, you're being used. My mother's voice rose again. Don't you dare play the victim, she screamed, and for a second her mask slipped fully. You think you're better than us because you have money and a husband and a house. Miles's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Officer Kim stepped closer to my mother. "Ma'am," she said. Lower your voice." My mother ignored her and jabbed a finger toward my front door. "That's my family's house." Hayes turned to me. "Do you want them trespassed?" he asked. "Yes," I answered immediately. My mother blinked hard. "You wouldn't," she whispered, like she couldn't believe the word applied to her. I stayed calm. "I would," I said. Officer Hayes nodded and turned toward my mother and sister. "You are being formally instructed to leave the property," he said. "If you refuse, you will be removed and cited." Brianna stepped forward, finally dropping the smirk completely. "This is insane," she snapped. "She's manipulating you with paperwork?" Hayes held up the POA they'd handed him. "This paper is why I'm concerned," he said. "It claims the principal signed yesterday. Notary stamp is out of state. If she wasn't in that state, this is potentially forged." My mother's eyes widened. "It's not forged," she said too fast. Hayes looked at her. "Where was it notarized?" he asked. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it. Brianna jumped in. "Online," she said. "Remote, it's legal." Hayes nodded slowly. "Remote notarization has a recording and identity verification," he said. "So that'll be easy to confirm." Brianna's face tightened. Then the buyer's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his expression collapsed into panic. He put it on speaker without thinking. A bank representative's voice came through, crisp and careful. "Sir," she said, "we've initiated a wire recall request. The receiving account is currently under review. We need you to file a fraud report immediately and come into a branch." The buyer's hands shook. "So we might get it back?" "We cannot guarantee outcome," the rep said. "But the sooner you file, the better." The buyer's face turned toward my mother with something raw and furious. "You had us wire to your name," he said. "You stole from us." My mother's voice turned shrill. "I didn't steal anything. It was for family." "For family?" the woman buyer whispered, tears starting. "We wired our savings." Officer Hayes stepped in, calm but firm. "Ma'am," he said to my mother, "do not speak to them. Do not approach them." My mother didn't listen. She took a step forward anyway. Officer Kim moved with controlled speed and blocked her path. "Stop," she said. My mother froze, breathing hard, realizing for the first time that this wasn't her living room. This wasn't a dinner table she could control by volume. This was an official scene. Hayes turned to the buyers. "I need your information," he said. "I need your wire confirmation and I need copies of anything you were given. Settlement statement, instructions, emails." The man buyer nodded, eyes burning. "We'll give you everything." Hayes nodded once. "Good," he said. Then he looked at my mother and sister again. "You two need to leave now," he repeated. "You are not authorized to be here." Brianna's voice cracked. "You can't do this," she hissed at me. "You can't make Mom look like what she is?" I asked quietly. My mother's face twisted. "After everything I did for you," she spat. "You're going to call the police on me?" I didn't raise my voice. "You called strangers to my door," I said. "You tried to make me homeless as a punchline." Hayes held out his hand toward the yard. "Off the property," he said. "Yak now." My mother grabbed Brianna's wrist and yanked her down the steps. Brianna stumbled, phone slipping in her hand. My mother didn't care. She was in survival mode now. As they reached the sidewalk, my mother turned and screamed one last line toward the street, voice breaking. "You'll regret this." I didn't answer. Because she was wrong. What I regretted was every year I let her treat my life like it belonged to her. Officer Hayes stepped closer to me. "Ma'am," he said, "based on what I'm seeing, you may want to file a formal report for attempted fraud and unlawful eviction." "I already have," I said. and handed him Denise's compliance notice from Harborline and Marisol's fraud routing information. He nodded, impressed despite himself. "Okay," he said. "We're going to document everything here, and if that POA is forged, new detectives will follow up." The locksmith quietly packed his tools like he wanted to erase his presence from the day. The buyers stood in shock, then turned to each other and started making calls with trembling hands. Miles finally exhaled. "Are we okay?" he asked softly. I looked at my front door, the same door my mother tried to turn into a trophy, and felt my chest loosen by a fraction. "We're okay," I said. Because the house was never theirs to sell. Over the next 2 weeks, Harborline Title formally reported the file to state regulators and preserved the entire audit trail, including the identity verification override under Brianna's user account. The remote notarization platform produced the session recording and verification logs, confirming I was not the signer and that the identity check had been overridden. The county recorder accepted my affidavit of fraudulent attempt and maintained the transfer restriction while investigators opened a real estate fraud case. The buyer's bank escalated the wire recall quickly. Most of the funds were recovered because the receiving account was flagged and frozen before it could be fully moved. My mother and sister were charged for forgery-related and fraud-related offenses tied to the attempted conveyance and the diversion of buyer funds, and a restraining order barred them from my home and from contacting me. The Soweld sign came down quietly one morning, and the only thing left in my yard was the grass growing back where they'd tried to plant a lie. In the comments, tell me this. If you came home from a honeymoon to a sold sign and strangers changing your locks, how would you confront your family on the porch? Or would you do what I did and go straight to records, logs, and the people who can freeze everything? If you want more stories like this, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.